Hello everyone! Today's quite an exciting day as the long-awaited V47, aka full release update, has finally been released to us after a long, exhausting wait and a small delay. With this new update comes heaps of new content for us to sink our teeth into, ranging from small and minor tweaks to major features and changes. It's been quite a while since I've made an overview or a proper VH3 video other than the speculation video, which you can watch in the top right once you're done with this. This update has quite a lot of good changes and some not quite as good as others. I'll be covering as absolutely much as I can about the update, and near the end I'll give my full thoughts on the update, so make sure to stay tuned. If you end up enjoying this video, consider leaving a like and comment so that the algorithm considers not hating me. And with all of that stalling out of the way, let's begin the overview. Upon loading into Vampire Hunters Free for the first time since the update, you'll be put into a quick tutorial meant to teach you the basics of the game, which is much appreciated since I've met far too many defaults who play like they're tripping balls. Once you finish the tutorial, you'll be prompted to select 3 gadgets out of 6, 1 from each category, 1 of 3 guns, and 1 of 2 vampire abilities. Once you're done with that, you'll be set loose into the new and improved main menu. I'll be trying to be brief with covering the menus since it isn't particularly something that affects actual gameplay. First, let's talk about the new server system, which allows you to join a public lobby or to join or create a private lobby, which basically means free VIP servers. Yay! You can join private lobbies by typing the username of the player you want to join. Some private lobbies require you to be friends with the user or enter a number code. You can also easily join friends at the bottom, though sometimes it kinda just doesn't work. Next, you'll probably notice the loadouts menu from the pre-release versions have been split into 2, those being Character Creator and Edit Loadout. Character Creator is self-explanatory, allowing you to edit your character, and Edit Loadout allows you to change your gun, gadgets, perks, banners, vampire abilities, MVP animation, and emotes on your emote wheel, which can be activated with the T key. Now, you may have noticed that I mentioned banners. Banners are these things. You can unlock them through achievements, though they're currently unfinished. So far, the only unlockable ones I've seen are the level up banners. You can also change your card title by changing the prefix and suffix, allowing you to have a card title such as Professional Grass Toucher or Top Notch Tryhard. Banners are shown when someone hovers over you in game and at the end of each round. On another note, the character creator is significantly more advanced than it used to be, allowing you to be more precise with facial features and allowing you to customize vamp skins a bit more than just 4 random variants, though they kinda just ruined the ghost skin. Also, every single hair in the game has been replaced with original hair models made specifically for Vampire Hunters Free, which for the most part look pretty good. They've also revamped hair color customization, so instead of being able to change the color, you can pick from a variety of selected colors and you'll have to buy hair colors. Well, this is made up for with how the selected colors have things like gradients that are more detailed, though it does kinda nullify the professional stylist pass, which I specifically bought for VH3. This has a simple fix of just allowing us to have total control over our hair if we bought the Game Pass. The main menu isn't the only place that got changes though, the in-game lobby has a few as well. First, you can now change your perk while spectating and waiting in the lobby, which is a much appreciated change, especially since leaving to the main menu means leaving the server. You're also now able to save loadouts. You can change which specific parts get saved, such as your gadgets, perks, and abilities. You're also able to change the sights and skins of your guns and gadgets while waiting, though you can't buy any in the lobby. Another thing that's changed about the lobby is basically everything. In your performance report, you can now see all of your total damage and which of it was done to a specific player. There's also a playlist available in both the lobby and in game, though they're slightly different depending on which. In the lobby, you can see everyone's exact level in their character model. Meanwhile, in the game, you can only see their name and if their body has been found or not. Also, there's a few new post-game cutscenes, and once the game ends, you'll see the MVP's full banner, along with it just being flashy as hell. Next, you can press K while in-game to see a full list of the controls, so there's nothing new in there, and it's the same regardless of if you're Vampire or Hunter. The round intro has also been changed with a completely new animation and new music depending on which of the 3 rounds it is or if it's a special round. However, they kinda removed the ability to see your gadgets and ability, so that sucks. The health and stamina UI has been redesigned a bit, and when you equip body armor you can see its health in the form of a blue bar. Also, in chat when someone passes a DNA test, it will simply say player name has passed the DNA test. Though they removed the tested human text you see when you hover over somebody. There's also text for when you're the last person or when you've killed everybody but one person as a vampire. Another minor thing, you can also see players' speech bubbles above their head, which I have yet to see affect the game in any way whatsoever. And lastly, something I forgot to mention in the character creation section, you can now roll up shirt sleeves, which is pretty cool, though it doesn't work on every shirt sadly. And that's all I can remember that fits into this section. If I missed anything, I'll show them on screen now before moving on to the next section. Now onto the more exciting stuff. This update has come with tons of changes to the regular gameplay for me to list, some of which I'll probably forget to list in this section. Also, this section will probably be quite short since everything else gameplay related I'm saving for later portions of the video, such as gadgets, guns, perks, vampire abilities, game modes, and maps. Now, to start off small, stamina now recharges faster the longer it recharges, and general movement has been tweaked. Next, ammo boxes have been reworked. They're in much more consistent spots around the map, and players can press F on an ammo box so that whoever has a gun can easily locate them, which is a massive step up compared to before. Back in V46, if a hunter ran out of ammo, they had to search the entire map for an ammo box, and since ammo boxes couldn't be found by players, the hunter had to let the vampire grab them to get ammo. Needless to say, that system sucked, so this is a very much appreciated change. There are also new items to collect around the map other than just food, those being a box of band-aids and pills. The box of band-aids has 2 uses, each use grants 10 HP and the pills grant you a small regeneration buff. Also, you can throw food at players now which deals 1 damage, and yes, you can get a badge by doing this. By the way, badges function now. Most of them only really give player titles, but some like level badges and gadget/ability masteries will give you banners instead. Whenever a player gets a badge, it'll show up in chat with player name is achieved badge name, though this tends to give away if the vampires grabbed somebody or not, because of the get off me badge, which is obtained from escaping a vampire. Next, this is pretty minor, but if you press Q and E while sprinting, you can dodge to the left or right, which takes up a bit of stamina, which means now Vampire Hunters 3 only needs parrying to finish the Holy Trinity. Next, this is a pretty big one. If you have any teammates alive, regardless of if you're vampire or survivor, you'll get downed, and your teammates have a certain amount of time to revive you. I think you have about 15 health when you get down, so if somebody punches you or shoots you a few times, you'll die for good. Do know that dying while grabbed or to certain things will not down you and instead outright kill you, regardless of how much of your team is alive. Escaping has also been made much easier, either because of a new escape UI or survivors getting more escape boost, I'm not quite sure, but either way it's way quicker to escape. This doesn't mean that the vampire is without its own buffs, however, as vampires can now grab people while spinning, which is meant to help vampires in dealing with large amounts of survivors grouping up on them with bats, which is very much appreciated. Vampires will also get less escape stun the more grabs they perform without getting a kill, which is also appreciated against teams of survivors with near infinite heals. The vampire also gets about a minute per kill instead of 30 seconds, which means the vampire will have much more time within a round, though depending on how much time is left, vampires may get more or less time per kill, the maximum being 1 minute. This also means that rounds can last significantly longer, up to about 8 minutes on some occasions. The vampire can also hold shift to move a bit quicker while biting somebody, which is useful for isolating survivors you've grabbed. Next, the hunter's Lumina powers have been nerfed a bit. Lumina Punch now has 1 less extra punch, and the counter block can't be spammed nearly as easily before, which makes modes like Lumina Battle a bit less terrible. Lastly, these are quite small, but I believe punching is a bit better now, and your camera moves slightly whenever you interact with something. I probably outright missed something major, but whatever. With all of that out of the way, let's move on to the next section of the overview. Now, this is probably going to be the largest section of this video, since a lot of the changes in V47 are new additions and various changes to gadgets, perks, guns, and abilities. Now, starting with gadgets, they've added one new gadget, that being the futuristic Surge Glove. The Surge Glove is a pretty unique healing gadget. You can equip the Surge Glove onto yourself or to your teammates so it won't take up any inventory space, and you hold middle mouse button to begin healing. The Surge Glove heals a total of 55 health, which is the lowest out of all of the healing gadgets, being 5 less than the Epigun, which is a gadget with the second lowest total healing. However, it makes up for this by allowing you to use it absolutely whenever you want, even if you're holding another item or if you're grabbed. Currently there isn't any skins for it yet sadly, but there's quite a lot of potential. Please? Some other gadgets have gotten some changes as well, like the DNA tester. I already mentioned a few of the DNA tester's changes, but a major one I forgot to talk about is how you can now hold right click to deploy the DNA tester. If a survivor passes through it, it'll flash green, but if a vampire passes through it, the DNA pod will flash red and a notification will show up alerting everyone that a vampire has passed by it. However, it isn't as definitive as regular DNA testing, as it doesn't clear your name in chat and doesn't specify who the vampire actually is. So if somebody passes by it on the other side of the map, all the survivors will know is that a vampire passed by it, but not who the vampire is. This, along with the fact that it takes a few seconds for the DNA pod to actually start working, encourages you to DNA test regularly, so you can't just place it in the middle of a crowd and immediately find the vampire. This also means that you can place it down to act as a motion sensor in areas where you think the vampire will pass a lot, which makes it especially good on maps like Future Labs and Manor. Next, Pocket Knife got quite a major buff for some reason. Now you only need to press 2 keys to activate the Pocket Knife escape instead of 5. I'm not sure why they decided to add this since Pocket Knife was already pretty good, but whatever. Next, Holy Water now has a reticle to show you where you're aiming, and also it got nerfed a bit, now only having 2 uses instead of 3, and dealing a bit less damage. Crucifix also now has a range bubble around it, and I think its range has been decreased significantly. Bat has also gotten a small rework. Now if you do 1 full swing and 1 medium swing for example, you'll only be able to do 1 small swing rather than the bat just breaking, depending on how much charge you used. Defib isn't really different, but it can be used to revive yourself if you get downed. And lastly, night vision goggles can now be toggled by turning your flashlight on and off. As of the moment, they're kinda broken since they don't show you the gun's location and don't block pepper spray anymore. Also, you can now only bring 1 healing gadget into a round, though you can partially circumvent this by using a healing gadget in regen or a healing gadget in random gadget, as it's possible to get 2 healing gadgets if you go random. Allegedly. This also applies to weapon gadgets, or so I've been told. Another major change to gadgets is you can now level them up. Leveling up gadgets doesn't really do anything other than unlock skins to give you a banner and a badge once you get them to level 15. You can level up gadgets by just using them, and it's independent from your regular levels. And that's about all the gadgets done. If I missed something on drone, then I don't care. I refuse to buy or even use that thing. Now, let's talk about perks. 2 new perks have been added, those being Trained Medic and Team Tactician, which both center around healing your damn teammates for once. Trained Medic lets you use healing gadgets faster and heal your teammates 35% more and yourself about 12.5% more. This is pretty decent for people who like the Medic playstyle, but if you want some healing too, then Team Tactician will be more up your alley. Team Tactician gives you back 40% of the health you heal to your teammates and gives you a small heal for assisting with escapes and gives you a small bonus for reviving players, though I think it means players that have been downed and not defibbed players. That's not all for perks though. Viability has been buffed, now giving an extra 25% HP instead of 25 HP flat, which makes it much more useful for when you're the vampire. Also, Constitution got buffed, now making it so you can't bleed whatsoever, which is appreciated but not really needed. There's probably a few more changes, but I wouldn't know since they didn't write down perk stats in anticipation of V47. Oops. Anyways, on to guns. There's 4 new guns, those being the SMP-9, Makarov, S12K, and the Mosin. First, the SMP-9. The SMP-9 is one of the 3 starting guns you choose once you finish the tutorial. It's basically like a slightly nerfed mini, dealing 3 less damage and having 50 less fire rate, while also having less recoil and more ammo per clip. It's pretty decent, but I'd rather just use the SMP-7 or SMP-5M. Next, the Makarov. The Makarov deals 25 damage and has 9 bullets in its clip. It has average recoil and is basically a better version of the M45A1S, as it deals the same damage but has better recoil, fire rate, and mag size. It's a pretty good gun, but it's not going to change up the meta all too much, though I can see people picking this gun quite often as it's pretty low level. Next up is the brand new shotgun, that being the S12K, which is very clearly based off of the Saiga 12. It's kinda like a weaker version of the M020, if anyone even knows that gun exists. It deals about 25 damage and has a pretty tight spread if you aim down sights. Hip firing, however, wouldn't recommend hip firing with this. It's a pretty decent option, but I doubt all too many people will be maining it over the Nova X or the BCH-7. Lastly, the first and probably only sniper rifle, the Mosin. The Mosin is kind of like a Hefner 17, except it's actually made for sniping, as its headshots do more damage the farther away your target is. It deals about 42 damage, and its recoil isn't as bad as the Hefner 17s, basically making this a Jeffner light. It's also the new highest level gun in the game, being unlocked at level 400. Now there's more changes to guns in just a few new additions, as shotguns have been nerfed, and one of them kind of buffed? Shotguns now do less damage than they did in V46 across the board. No one's safe. The Nova X is now the highest damaging shotgun. Before it was the M870, and now the Silenced Nova doesn't deal the same damage as BCH-7, making it actually worth equipping over it. Despite shotguns dealing less damage, they're still really good. Don't sleep on them. Lastly, for guns, the GK Auto, SMP-7, and SMP-7S have been remodeled. I really like the new design for the SMP-7S and how its stock is extended compared to the original. And the GK Auto I don't really use enough to care. Now on to abilities. There isn't any entirely new abilities, but there's new sub-abilities for Rock, Heat Sense, Diamond Skin, Kangaroo, Chiroptera, and Volatile, along with some changes to quite a lot of other abilities. Starting off with Diamond Skin, it has 2 new primaries and 1 new secondary. The first new primary is Crystal Bomb, which is a spike grenade which when thrown will stick to whatever it was thrown on and then explode, scattering tons of spikes around. It deals pretty decent damage, but this ability is kinda glitched as it doesn't count as a vampire kill. A friend of mine literally got kicked for low karma when I killed them with it. The next Diamond Skin ability is Spike Path. Now I think this would also be quite a decent ability, but there's a minor issue. I have not had this ability work correctly even once. It always spawns only a single spike instead of a row like it's supposed to, and I don't know why. I haven't seen anyone else using this ability either, so I don't know if it's widespread or literally just me. By the way, the spikes can be broken, so be careful of that. Lastly, for Diamond Skin's new abilities, Crystal Shield. Now this, like the default secondary, will guard you from damage, but Crystal Shield is a lot lighter and can break much easier. As a trade-off though, you can run while using it and it will recharge over time. It's pretty fragile when you're exposed from the top, so be careful. It's a pretty unique alternative to the default secondary and quite fun with the new primaries, but I don't know if it's better or worse, which isn't a bad thing. It's a side grade. But Diamond Skin hasn't gotten all good changes, as Crystal Cast and the default secondary have gotten nerfed. Things like regular melee hits can now go through your Diamond Skin. This is because it was kind of broken before, since the only things that could stop the vampire from just holding right click every time they got grabbed was Lumina Punch, Holy Water, and Taser. And Crystal Cast, you can only cast 1 crystal at a time. Or maybe it's also just me, I'm not sure. Next up is Chiroptera, which has gotten a new primary in the form of Echo Locate. It's quite simple. You charge it up for a few seconds before it activates, and once it activates, a strange noise will start playing that everyone can hear, and any survivor that moves will have their location revealed to the vampire. Do be warned that survivors will know what's happening when you activate this. Its effect is horrendously obvious to quite literally everyone. Echolocate also makes the survivor's screens shake a little bit, so it can be good for disorientation. You can also use this to go after smaller groups of survivors, so do be warned that you may run into a group larger than you anticipated, since players will know to stand still because it literally says to right at the top of their screen. It's pretty decent, but I don't see this being super good late game when looking for hiders, as people don't tend to move while hiding, and Echolocate will discourage them even more. Also another change to Chiroptera, its default primary, Flay, has been changed a bit. Now you can't use it while escape stunned, and isn't a discount super jump / free dive, but it's actually used for Flay, but it's more so gliding than Flay. This is also a pretty good change, since people could spam the primary when someone escapes to fly all over the place, making them pretty hard to hit. Next, Heat Sense has a new secondary ability, Vestigorb. Vestigorb is a quite unique ability. Basically, you hold down right click to summon an orb of heat that will travel to the nearest survivor slowly. A certain range of a survivor, they'll speed up a bit. You can tell when they found somebody when they have a red eye icon over them. If they can't find anyone to go towards, they'll sit there with a question mark above them. They also deal a tiny bit of damage on contact, so you can use this for a bit of extra damage. It's pretty alright, though you'll still get people whining about you using Heat Sense. Also, you can activate Heat Shield while untransformed now, which can lead to some silly shenanigans and also could potentially help in dealing with crucifixes. Sadly, due to the laws of equivalent exchange, Heat Sense has had its passive removed, though it doesn't really matter. Now onto Dirt Wall, which is a new rock secondary, which allows you to place these dirt spheres wherever your cursor is pointing as long as you're holding down right click. They can be used to grant yourself extra mobility or deny survivors easy traversal. Also, yes, you can shoot rocks with this. Now onto Volatile, and now has a brand new default primary, that being Detonate. A lot like Crystal Shield, it's a quicker, less powerful version of Self-Destruct. It does less damage than Self-Destruct, but unlike Self-Destruct, it actually recharges over time. It also does a bit less damage to both yourself and the survivors, and it makes a different, much louder noise. And now Kangaroo, which is the last ability to get a new sub-ability, has gotten a new secondary, that being the Stomp Dash. Once you hold right click for a second or two, you'll start running around and stomping loudly. Your speed can be increased if you hold down shift. It'll knock over any survivors you run into, and you can even grab people while it's active. This means that Kangaroo doesn't suck nearly as much in enclosed maps like Manor and Future Labs. This isn't the only new thing for Kangaroo, however, as Super Jump has been massively buffed. It's actually kinda broken now. If you super jump straight up, you'll fly really high into the sky, meaning certain death for whichever survivor is in your grasp. Even you take a bit of fall damage from this too. Super jump is also just much smoother in general. Now on to abilities that haven't gotten any new sub-abilities, starting with Storm. For some reason, Zach really loves tinkering with Storm. Firstly, its default primary, the Lightning Strike, has been reworked. It can be charged up way quicker, and once it's done charging, a big obvious blue circle will appear, and after a second or two it'll unleash a maybe powerful attack. Its damage has sadly been nerfed, but due to the rework this means you can cast a Lightning Strike and dip, so equivalent exchange. Next, Hailstorm has been changed into a secondary, probably because Zach realized that Storm has 4,000 primaries yet only one secondary. Also, Tornado has been buffed, which means if you use both at the same time, you know, I don't want to talk about it. Next, Infect has been substantially nerfed. Once you use its default primary, Vampirify on somebody, they'll be knocked out for a bit, forcing the main vampire to defend them until they wake up. Since it's super easy for a group of survivors to kill an infected person while they're knocked out, even with the vampire defending them, the vampire is encouraged to infect stealthily. Infected minions have also been nerfed. They now move significantly slower and have less jump height. And Infect's secondary, Lifesteal, is way more precise now, or it's just glitch. It's way harder to consistently hit people with the beam. And lastly, Moore's Grenades used to have nerfed tracking or no longer tracks players, but this could also be a glitch. Wildfire's Flame Trap has a massively increased radius. Now, you may notice that I'm not using any in-game footage, and that's because I've spent way too damn long leveling up Heat Sense, Diamond Skin, and Rock alone so I can get footage. I'm not gonna bother leveling up Wildfire for this video, even if it's my favorite ability. I don't really have an opinion on this buff, but don't step on flame traps when they can be avoided, obviously. Decoy's default secondary, Disguise, has also gotten a bit of a buff, as the Disguise player now has the running animations of a vampire, making it a bit more convincing. Also, I think that Disguise players can pick up the gun now, but that's really about it for Decoy. Lastly, Military has been reworked as the Frag Grenade is now its default primary and Flashbang remains the default secondary, so now Military is still pretty viable, but you grind ability levels to get it back to being, you know, Military. And speaking of levels, you can now level up Vampire abilities. You level up your Vampire abilities by simply using them. If you don't use them, you don't get any ability experience. Ability experience varies depending on how well you do. It usually takes about 2 to 3 wins to level up an ability. Leveling up Vampire abilities is used to unlock new sub-abilities. This means that to get, say, Necromancy for Infect, you have to grind Infect forever and ever and ever until you reach level 10. Once you reach level 15 on an ability, you'll unlock a banner and maybe a title, though I've yet to bother to get any ability to level 15. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, everything you got for free during the pre-release version, such as abilities, perks, and gadgets are now locked, forcing you to level up enough to buy them back. Since I'm level 1000 and had a ridiculous stockpile of credits, I just bought everything I wanted, which costed me somewhere around 500k, but I've earned that back while grinding for diamond skin sub abilities. I probably forgot to mention a change to a sub ability or a minor change to some perk nobody uses, but I've spent far too long collecting footage for this goddamn video, so I'll move on to game modes and maps before I remember something I don't feel like talking about. Now on to the last section of the video where I cover new stuff. There isn't all too much new here, just changes to already existing things. Starting off with game modes, the way you vote for game modes has been changed a bit, now using some kind of card system which I'll explain now. You're given 4 randomly selected special modes to vote on. Once you pick one, it'll be placed onto some table. After 10 seconds, some dice thing will roll around and gravitate to whichever card it likes the most. Whichever cards it lands on the middle of will be the mode that gets picked. The more a card is voted, the more likely it is to get picked. Now, this is a major step up from the roulette system from V47, as it's more likely that modes people actually want to play will get picked, and now it's impossible for modes that nobody even voted to get picked, so it feels less like RNGesus is deciding what the server plays and more like the players are deciding. Though do be warned that it's still possible for a mode that only one booger brain moron voted to get picked. Also, during the voting section, you get a small rundown of each of the modes when you hover over their respective cards, such as if it's free-for-all, respawn enabled, has friendly fire, or if it's a hide-and-seek type mode. Also, I've tried to avoid talking about removed content until the last section, but I can't avoid it here. 4 special modes have been removed from the pool, those being Lockdown, Interception, Standoff, and Battle Royale. Now, I couldn't be happier that Lockdown and Interception are being sent to the deepest pits of hell to never resurface. In fact, they shouldn't have ever been added, but Battle Royale was kind of fun and chaotic despite it still being, you know, ass. And Standoff was perfectly fine, and it could have been kept alongside its newer counterpart, Deathmatch. Deathmatch is just Standoff, but everyone respawns endlessly, and since everyone respawns endlessly and they get a force field when they spawn, it just turns into everyone converging into the middle, causing there to be more shitty third parties in the Wii. I think Standoff really should have been kept alongside Deathmatch, as they both have their own niche. Next, Infection has gotten a small rework. Now the vampires respawn infinitely and the hunters have to hold out until the round ends. If a vampire kills somebody, they'll die and respawn as an infected, though if somebody gets team killed or killed for doing friendly fire, they won't respawn at all. This basically means that the vampire always wins an infection unless it's an AFK or a clueless default, but it's still pretty fun, so who cares. Gadget Battle has also been changed to have respawns, which means that it's also now a run into the middle and have your shit stolen like you live in Romania Simulator. And now onto the major changed one, Rogue Hunter. Rogue Hunter has been changed entirely. Now the survivors are vampires that haven't fully transformed yet, and once the timer hits 0, they'll transform and can now kill the hunter. They'll have full-fledged abilities, but still keep their meager health, so basically once the timer hits 0 it becomes Hunter-Not. One problem though is that once the phase 3 timer runs out, the vampires win instead of it being a draw or a hunter win, meaning that someone can just run for the hunter forever for an easy win, which is very much not a good thing. Lastly, I forgot to mention that they kept fucking Lumina Battle and made it respawn enabled as well, so have fun with that. Now onto the maps. 2 of the maps have been entirely overhauled, those being Quark Underground Bunker and Zack Corp offices. They're now Quark Bunker Facility and Z Corp offices. Starting with Z Corp, the map has been completely overhauled, resembling nothing of its former self. It basically has 2 halves now, both kind of acting as a middle point, those being the entrance area with the reception desk and the small office rooms, and the diner and the elevator area with its blue floor, elevator, and having 2 office floors. It also has a top floor with a green screen and an arcade machine. This map is quite enjoyable whenever it comes on, and it has a perfect balance of enclosed areas and open areas. It doesn't have too many hiding spots to be Valley Ruins 2.0 and too little to the point where it's Nightfall Motel 2.0. However, it suffers from pretty poor optimization, so low-end PC users will probably want to vote out this map. Next, onto Quark Bunker Facility. Sadly, this map isn't nearly as fortunate as Z-Corp, as it's still quite fun, but way too small and a bit too enclosed. The map has 2 floors, an elevator and a middle area where you can jump easily between the 2 floors, though you might take some fall damage. It still has a food court, shooting range, and garage, though the massive storage room that was always a pain to search has been removed and you can't go outside anymore. The map is quite decent, but it only has 3 hiding spots that are actually good. But in general, it's just nice that the map is much less linear now. Like Z-Corp, this map also suffers from poor optimization, so low-end PC users will despise when this map comes up in the map vote. That's not all for maps though, as I still need to talk about the changes to other maps. First, a large chunk of maps have been removed, probably to get reworked for later. Those being La Pizzeria, Vaclav Cathedral, Nightfall Motel, and Necrosov Street. Club Nebula and Office Complex are probably gone for good. The remaining maps from V47 are Survivor's Hideout, Valley Ruins, Manor, Future Labs, Hotel Japan, and House. All of the remaining maps have gotten changes ranging from minuscule to notable. First, Survivor's Hideout. The map has been made brighter and its size has been cut down a bit, meaning you can no longer access the garage area or to the side of a small house in the corner of the map. You also can't get behind that wall near the back of a dedicated garage building different from the other garage anymore. These changes mean that Survivor's Hideout is a lot easier to search as a vampire now, so rejoice. Next, Valley Ruins has also been shrunk a bit, and it also has a lot more blocked pathways. The cave has also had a really broken spot fix, which is nice, and a few parts of the maps have also been moved, like that yellow tent near the waterfall is gone. There's also more space on the roof of that hollow building which leads to the back of the map. Lastly for this section, the changes to Manor. Manor has one new room added in between the garage and the hallway next to the kitchen. It's locked but can be broken down and become a pathway, though it doesn't make a very good hiding spot. Every other remaining map has just gotten a few visual changes, nothing new. Now let's finally get on to the last section of this video so I can finish this up and claim my 300 views and 13 likes. This video is finally coming to an end after 30 minutes of my schizophrenic rambling, but of course I still need to talk about my thoughts on the update. It's great to see the game getting more players now that V47 has been released to the public, and almost all of the new features are great as well, but I don't know if I can confidently say that this update is outright better than V46 due to the cut content, ability leveling and grinding, poor friending system, and lack of quality of life features. The game had around 1,000 players on launch day, but has fallen to around 450 players average as of recording this. Due to how much maps got removed or are getting saved for the next update, like Nightfall Motel, Vaclav Cathedral, and the La Pizzeria remakes, this game has been getting quite stale quite fast. And after playing for a bit, you can tell that at a certain point Zach couldn't add everything that was planned and had to cut content. I'm sure a lot of the minor features being removed are because Zach didn't have time to optimize the game. And I can't entirely blame them either, as if they delayed the update any more, then the community would have freaked out. Despite this though, I'm still having a lot of fun with the update, even if dealing with Huntsman's tranquilizer near constantly is making me tear my damn hair out. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and comments. I put a ton of effort into these, and my videos basically always underperform compared to the effort I put into them. I mean, just look at Humorous Happenings 3. Lastly, I know that somebody else in the community has already made an overview on day 1, which probably goes into a lot more detail than this video ever could. I made sure to watch as little of it as possible, only looking to it for confirmation on about 2 things I was unaware of. I'll link it in the description and in the top right. I was going to make this overview regardless of if Mike released theirs or not. I've been planning on making this since late May, and now I can finally begin working on other VH3 videos now that the update is out and I've released my overview. That is, unless my damn power cuts out again. Oh shit.